Pleasure. There, I said it. I'm going to have to say it again. Pleasure. So be honest here. What comes to your mind when I say the word pleasure? Do you think about God's side, the light, or do you think about darkness? Pleasure. Now, if you naturally think of that word and you associate it with darkness, this pastor chat might blow some things up in your worldview. Here we go. First of all, shout out to my wife. This pastor chat is made just totally for her because I love her so much. And I've been soaking on this verse and thinking about her. So, all right, here we go. The verse is 1 Timothy 16. It's going to blow you away. Here it comes. I'm just going to send it right at you. Instruct them, written to pastors. Timothy was a letter written to pastors. It says, pastors, you tell your people, instruct them to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. There it is. You see it there in front of you. I'm not making it up. Enjoyment. 1 Timothy 6:17. So what I want to say to you is, in all seasons, God will provide you with richly sufficient things to enjoy, things to bring you pleasure. Believe it, look for it, hope for it, and start to see it. All right, I got a little graphic I'm going to throw up on the screen there. And you see it there, the little waterfall falling on the guy's head in 4 different strands, 4 different streams. What I want to say here to start with is that the way God provides pleasure or enjoyment for you might change from season to season in your life. It might not always come through relationship number A, that maybe that's strand number 1 there, stream 1. It might not always come through person 2. Stream number 2 there. It might not always come through activity 3 or hobby 4 or technology 5 or whatever the different streams are. There's lots of different forms of pleasure that God can provide for us. He knows you. He knows the things you enjoy. And the way God provides enjoyment for you in life might not always be through the same stream. But this promise tells us that it will always be provided in some way. All right, next. So this is the key here. Don't fixate on one source. Don't fixate on one source. You know, we tend to do that. It's natural, but it's unhealthy. Okay, when we fixate on one source, what it does is it kind of creates an unhealthy dependency in our life, in our heart, in our feelings, in our thinking on that one stream. Okay, and then what we do is we start clinging to that one stream. We get these fears that maybe this stream will dry up someday and it'll be taken away from me. And when we get that fear, when that fear gets in, see, that's when bad stuff starts happening. We start doing things, we shouldn't do just to try to hang on to that one source because we're afraid. We hang on to it too tightly. We hang on to it too hard. Maybe we end up doing things we shouldn't do to try to keep it in our life. Or, that one source might just plain dry up for a season on its own. Maybe we've got a best friend and they're like that one stream of our enjoyment, like the best part of our life. And then, they get a job in another city and they have to move away. And just like that overnight, that stream dries up. Maybe, it's a child. We've got a child in our life that we just really enjoy. And all of a sudden we wake up one day and they hit puberty, their hormones start going, they're a teenager, they don't want to have anything to do with us or whatever. That warm love we used to get from them, the hugs, the affection, it just dries up. They're like a different person overnight, not a drop left. That's always going to hurt. It's always going to hurt when one of the streams dries up for a season. But see, if we fixate on that one stream, once it's dried up, see, that makes the pain unnecessarily hard. It amplifies the pain. No. Instead, we should resist that. We should work to keep our eyes on the ultimate source of all the streams. Is the promise true or is it not? Is God a liar or is he not? If he's not, then when one stream dries up, we can expect a new stream will come. In fact, maybe sometimes it already is there in our life and we don't recognize it. So don't fixate on one stream, okay? Fixate on the source. Fixate there. Fixate on God, on this amazing promise that's given. And check this, guys. It's not just a promise. In fact, it's not a promise at all if you read it carefully. The verse is actually talking about a person, about who God is. Read it carefully again. Instruct them to put their hope in what? Not in a promise, in a person, in God. God himself, who, and then it says what he's like. He's a God who does this kind of thing. Here's this natural thing he always does. He richly provides his kids with things to enjoy. Can you see that there? It's a promise wrapped into who God is. So put your hope in God, who's the kind of God who does this kind of thing for us all the time. So be honest now. Did you know that about the God we serve? Was this part of his heart crystal clear to you before this pastor chat? Some of you, if you're honest, it wasn't, because it wasn't to me. I ran across this verse in college, and when I read it, I almost did a double take. I was like, wait, okay, hold on a minute. Enjoyment? Like, okay, I think I know a thing or two about God. I'm pretty sure he doesn't really care about us having pleasure in our life. Like, that's not really Christian. That's like on the side of darkness. You know, maybe what I figured was maybe it was a mistranslation from the Greek. I was like, I guarantee you, when I look this word enjoyment up in Greek, it's actually going to mean something like more like edification. God will always provide what we need to make us stronger. Or maybe necessity. God will always provide what we need to make it through strong following him. It can't just literally mean like pleasure I get from eating Cheetos or watching my favorite anime or hanging out with one of my best friends. It can't mean like pleasure. It's got to be something more like holy, you know? And I looked it up in Greek. You want to see what the definition is? Here it is. I got it on the screen there. Having the benefit of something and so enjoying it. And I circled the formal equivalent he gives there. Enjoyment. It literally just means pleasure, enjoyment, having something and you really enjoy it. Okay? In fact, if you don't believe me, look at this other time it's used right there. He lists Hebrews 11:25. And when you look up that verse, look at how it's used. It says this person of God chose to be mistreated along with God's people rather than to enjoy the short-lived pleasure, there's our word, from sin. Okay? A person chose to go with God and suffer with God's people instead of enjoy the pleasure of sin. So it can be connected with sin. It's the same flavor of the pleasure that we get from sin. You know, pleasure can come from two different sources, come from darkness or from light. If I'm really on my A game, I'll have a chart in front of you that shows different forms of pleasure that come from on God's side, from the light, and other sources of pleasure that come from darkness. But they're both pleasure. They both make us feel pleasurable. We enjoy it, right? Guys, God is all about pleasure. Satan doesn't own pleasure. He distorts it and perverts it and can offer us substitute forms of pleasure. So there's sinful pleasure, but there's also healthy, pure pleasures. And God's promising that he will always provide richly. See that word, richly provide. Things for you to enjoy. Pleasure from the side of light. He knows you. He knows how you're made. And he will provide this for you. It's just a straight up pleasure word. I want you to soak that in. When I looked that verse up and realized that that's what it was saying, it blew my view of God apart a little bit. And let me put it this way. It added a new piece to my part of God. It added a new flavor to what I think of when I think about what God is really like. Because here's a God who genuinely wants me to have things that I enjoy. And he's committed to providing those for him. What would you call that? What would be the attribute that you would give to God, this kind of God? A God who actually wants you to have pleasure in your life. Think about it. What would be the attribute, the adjective you could use to describe God? This part of God. Not holy, not righteous. Kind? Good? Good. I think richly good. He's a good God, you know, and it adds a new flavor into your view of God. I hope it is. So my question for you is it part of your image of God yet? And if it's not, guys, let it sink in so you can start seeing it. Sometimes that's why we cling to the sins that we love so much. And I think sometimes when we cling to those streams, which are dark water, some of the good streams will dry up. And God waits for us to let go of those dark streams and trust that he can open up other sources of pleasure for us. So maybe you've got some dark pleasures in your that are in your life right now. Guys, kick them to the curb, because maybe they're blocking you from enjoying something else that God would provide. Or maybe he has already provided and you don't even see it yet. So be set free today. If this is not part of your image of God, let it soak in and hit you and fill you up with like more faith that you can trust him. This is his promise. This is who he is, and it will not fail. In every season, God will provide you with sufficient things to enjoy, rich pleasures. Believe it, look for it, hope for it, and start to see it. I'll tell you a little story, because I've learned from this promise. That was 10 years ago or so when I looked it up in Greek. It might be more like 15 years ago. But I've come to start looking for it in seasons that are especially dark, like maybe something really hard's going on in my life. I've come to start to just like hang on and then expect that God's going to open up something really, really good, because I've seen it happen over and over. I've learned to start hoping. When my heart is aching, when stuff's just not going right in my life and I'm hurting, I've learned to start like, okay, wait, normally when this happens, God opens up something if I hang on, and it's really, really good. He opens up some form of comfort, some form of encouragement. Maybe it's a breakthrough in somebody's life that I've been praying for a long time, or something that I've really wanted and haven't been able to get, and all of a sudden it just opens up some form of pleasure, comfort that he always seems to bring in the seasons of suffering. And I've learned to start waiting for it, and it actually gives me hope. And I've seen it happen again and again and again like clockwork. I'll share just one story of something that happened a couple months ago. It was a Sunday night, January, let me find the exact date for you guys here. It was Sunday, January 10th. Sunday, January 10th was one of the hardest days of my life. I remember just like crying out to God in the rumble room in my basement at like midnight and just actually screaming. I remember that's how like in agony my soul, and I don't scream like ever. I just had to let it out and was like, God, I don't like this. What are you doing? Like, this hurts. And I just lifted up to him with something outside of my control, and it just was painful. And, and it was hard. There was a lot of tears, and it was just like, what do you want me to do? Because I don't even want to, I don't want to keep going with how this is hurting. Like, I don't want to, there's some things that God's called me to do that I didn't want to do anymore. It was causing me pain. And I laid it at God's feet. That's what you do. Take your emotions to God. When stuff's hurting, just let it out and lift it up to him. Remember who he is as your father. And I felt a lot better once I laid it out in front of him, but I still was pretty low. I remember going to bed, dragging myself up back to bed. And I remember the next morning, it was hard to get out of bed. And I've been through seasons like this. I knew I just had to get out of that bed and put one foot in front of the other. And then, get breakfast, get food in me, okay? And then pack up and then go to work. So I got up, I had some breakfast, had my quiet time with God, and then I got in the car and just made myself go to work. And I was just depleted emotionally, right? But I remembered this promise, and I remembered how God does this, how he provides. I was like, you know what? Something is going to open up, and I'm just going to keep fighting to put one foot in front of the other and trust that something good is going to open up, that God's going to open up some stream of pleasure to comfort me in what I'm going through. It was Monday. Guys, that was Monday at 8 o'clock I start work here at church. Okay, at 10:30 or 11 a.m., I got a message from Amanda on my phone. Hey, give me a call. Something really cool has opened up. So I called her, and it turns out there was this 9-year-old boy. Some of you have met him, this 9-year-old boy that needed a home. And, he's pre-adoptive, meaning his parents have already forfeited their rights. And, guys, that's something I've been praying for like 10 years. I've had a heart to find some boy that needs a father, that has a father that doesn't want him. And because that's just in my heart. God's put so much love in my 10 years, it's been an ache on my heart. Just saying, God, it's right here. You put all this love in me for this kind of a kid. Hey, it's right here. 10 years of trying, putting in applications, doing searches, and having nothing come through. And Monday morning, right after one of the darkest nights of my life as I hung on and waited for God to open up a new stream. Hey, he brought more than what I could imagine, this little boy into my life. And this little boy is one of the new streams, but I'm not putting all my hope in him, right? I'm fixating on the source because he could turn on me, I got to be dad. I can't be buddy all the time. I got to enforce the law of the land, so... but I'm enjoying I'm just really enjoying him. But yeah, I just want to share that illustration. I've seen it happen, guys, again and again and again. So put your hope in God. Worship as you wait for sunrise. And this is a command. This isn't saying passive hope. This is a command to you. You've got to put your hope in God. That shows us we've got a part to play. You have to take your hope, which wants to sometimes bury itself under the ground or cling to something dark. You got to take your hope and stick it in God. Hope is a practice. It takes work. And that's what I did that morning. Get up, put that foot in front of the other, and just hope. Put your hope in God that he's going to open something up. Can you see that in that verse that you've got a part to play? It's a command. God can't do it for you. Okay? So do it afresh today. Whatever your hope is in as you're listening to this Pastor Chat, if it's not in God, rip it off that thing. If it's in other streams or single sources or something on the side of darkness, rip it off that. Or maybe it's something good that God's providing in your life. A hobby that you just love, some TV shows you love, a friendship, a relationship. Maybe it's a combination of things. Rip your hope off of those things. Plant all of it 100% in God. Don't fixate on the streams. Fixate on the source. And in every season, be reminded, God will provide you with sufficient things to enjoy. He will richly provide everything for your pleasure. Believe it, look for it, hope for it, and then start to see it.